And I had a friend I was talking to last week, and he mentioned this concept, I guess, that's going around called 0 days and non-zero days. I don't know if you'd heard of it, and it's kind of similar. So if you have a long-term goal, most of us are overwhelmed by these really long-term goals. So it's your non-zero days about just taking a little step. So if you're thinking of physical activity, even if you do 2 push-ups, that's a non-zero day. It could be even 5 minutes or 2 minutes doing something. So you're just making progress towards those goals. So in some ways, what you're talking about, where you're carving time out for yourself, is prioritizing whatever that is critical to you. And you talk about these mosaic tiles. I really, every time I listen to it as an audiobook as I went for a walk. Like I said, I was listening to it and I was just envisioning those tiles being moved. And I thought it was pretty neat because time is constant, but also elastic at the same time. If you choose to make it's like telling a child, you have 5 minutes to do homework versus 5 minutes of video game time. Those 5 minutes don't go at the same time, right? One feels like it's 30 minutes, and one feels like, hey, that was 5 seconds. So the elasticity of time lies in that concept of what we want to do rather than what we should do. And maybe that's part of the mosaic tile. So maybe you can speak to that and just, is there anything, if our listeners had to take away one thing that they should do differently or not do, what would you suggest?
Well, the reason I like this mosaic image, I mean, when I track my time, I do it on weekly spreadsheets. And so the cells of the spreadsheet in this telling are tiles on a mosaic, which just seems like a much more artistic and creative way of approaching it than just talking about, using Excel. But the idea is that time does not have to be used for one particular thing. So many of us have the idea that work happens from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That is the way it must be. And, there's nothing to be done about that. Work does not happen at other times. And so there becomes this strict separation of, work and the rest of life. And that's fine if you want to, do it that way. But especially, a lot of people have seen with COVID over the past year, and as a lot of people, worked from home more, the lines don't have to be quite as strict. But in general, the mosaic idea is that we can move time around between different categories. And by doing so, you can open up more possibilities than if work absolutely does have to happen between 9 to 5 and personal things cannot happen between 9 to 5. As an example, some people might start work late some morning to go read to a child's class for a special occasion. And then they would just work later that afternoon, instead of, let's say work from 10:30 to 6:30 instead of 9 to 5. And, the same amount of work could still get done, but you open up the possibility of doing something else, or maybe going for a run at lunch and then just making up the time at some other point. Or something I've seen a lot of people do, especially if they have very young children who go to bed early, is end work relatively early so they can spend quite a bit of time with their young children who go to bed early, and then do whatever work didn't get done in the afternoon at night after the kids go to bed. Right. So they're splitting their work shifts and doing, say, 9 to 3, and then work from 8 to 10 at night. And it's the exact same amount of time. It's just that you open up more hours for other things based on, what can happen sort of around other constraints. Working a half day during the week and working half a day on Saturday. You go to a museum on Thursday afternoon and, they're not open other times. Well, then just work a half day on Saturday. So that's the idea of the mosaic. It's just that you can move time around into different categories. And by being a little bit more flexible and a little bit more open about whether time is for work or life or something else, you just allow for a more broad perspective.